Head up. More preseason football tonight and tomorrow, including the Bears. Let's talk about them. Obviously, you remember last season ended in heartbreak. Cody Parkey missing a potential game-winning field goal would have given the Bears their first playoff win since 2010. But on they go with their third-year quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, coming off a breakthrough season. Saw him finish third in the NFL last year in total QBR. Do you know that? Only behind Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees. And then their defense got back to their vintage, holding their opponents to the fewest points in the National Football League. It was the first time Chicago led the league in scoring defense since 2005. Let's talk about it all by bringing their head coach into the conversation, the 2018 Coach of the Year, Matt Nagy, entering his second year with the Bears. Coach, thank you very much for doing this. I want to start talking about your offense. I was reading a story recently with the idea that Mitchell Trubisky this year will have the opportunity to be a lot more aggressive in the passing game. What will that look like?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Mike, is just for us. We always talk about touchdown, the check down mentality, and sometimes as a quarterback, depending on where you come from and your past history, you're not always taught that. And I think last year for us getting used to this offense, that was a mentality that he did get used to. And we took some shots downfield, which was great. But he was also trying to learn that offense. Now this year, going into year two, he feels a lot more comfortable in maybe understanding when the calculated risk makes sense to take that downfield shot and then to check it down to the guys. But he's done a really good job so far in training camp. We're excited for September 5th.
So safe to say it might be a little more of a green light this year for your quarterback relative to what we saw a year ago, in which, as I mentioned, he was third in the whole sport in QBR.
Yeah, we do. We like that. We have a lot of respect for what he's done, his history at playing this position, and just really learning who I am as a coach, how I call plays, and the same thing timing-wise with his wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. Just having that library of plays last year is just really helping them, taking them into training camp now, and here we are into the preseason. And like I said, just being able to give him the keys to the car to do his thing and understand that when things get a little bit gray, use your athletic ability to make plays with your legs, and when not, and you need to make plays with your arms, go ahead and do it.
All right, let's talk about the defense. I mentioned led the league in points allowed, and the key word there was opportunistic, created 36 turnovers, which was the most in the sport. What causes something like that to happen?
Well, number one, it's all about the players. These players go out there and they just make a lot of plays, but they practice that stuff, in practice. And we always talk about, taking the ball away. And then once you do take the ball away, make some production with it, whether that's, gaining field position or whether that's scoring touchdowns. And we were really opportunistic last year. These guys love playing defense. Every single period in practice, they're sprinting to the ball, they're touching that football, they're talking, they're communicating, and they make it difficult for us in practice. And I love that about them. I mean, we have a lot of savvy veterans that have experience, and now learning Coach Chuck's new defense. It's been a lot of fun, and they're really taking well to it.
I want to talk about the value of preseason in general. I've covered the sport for a very long time. It does feel like there may be a movement right now to significantly shorten the preseason, and I'm hearing people talk about the value of scrimmages and stuff. What do you get out of these preseason games that you feel you could not get without them?
Well, Mike, for us in particular, I think every team's a little bit different the more you look into this, and we have a lot of guys on both sides of the ball that we feel very comfortable with in regards to our starters, and a lot of those positions are in place. And so now what we do is we look at the next part. What better way than to get some great competition with your twos and your threes and your backups in these games to create that, to see where you're at depth-wise. And when you're in that position, Ryan Pace has done a phenomenal job with his personnel side of bringing in players that have a lot of talent and giving us some starters that we know are locked in there. So now what we do is we'll use some of this for our backups to see what do they do against some of these starters for these opposing teams. And again, last night, we had a little live mock, I shouldn't say live, but we had a mock practice last night, thud, and it was really great because we were able to hit all the situations, and it was just, for us being able to, more situations we can do, the better.
All right, fair enough. And then one last thing, I have to do this to you. We saw some video making the rounds last week of you throwing passes in practice, and I guess the question presents itself. If push comes to shove, do you think you still have a few plays left in you?
You know what? I wish, but absolutely not. My elbow's completely shot. I got lucky on that pass. It was a heck of a route by Anthony Miller, and I'm happy it was against Prince. You know, Prince and I have a nice little battle going all training camp, and those guys got me last year, so I was able to step back up this year. So it was a lot of fun.
Coach, it's a pleasure to talk to you again. Good luck as your season gets underway. We'll check in with you down the road. Thanks very much for doing this.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Matt Nagy, head coach, Chicago Bears. Sam, over to you.
I love that he just called out Prince. That'll be interesting in practice today. All right, let's stay in the NFL and in the NFC. We're going to play a little contender pretender. We've selected 4 NFC teams. You're going to tell us if they have a path to winning the conference. So let's start with his team, the Bears. Are they contenders or pretenders?
I would love to say that they're contenders, but at this point, they're pretenders. And you look at Mitch Trubisky, he was talking about that touchdown to check down mentality. I need to see more from Mitch. He needs to be more consistent down the field for them to be able to have success. He's done a good job. And then that defense was phenomenal creating turnovers. I don't know if they'll be able to repeat that same turnover ratio again. And then lastly, when you look at this thing, one of them things that plagued them was their special teams last year. It cost them a playoff game. They're a great team, but I don't think that in their division they're going to be able to get to the championship just yet.
Yeah, it's an interesting division this year. Let's move on to the Cowboys. We don't even know if they'll have Zeke, but are they a contender or pretender?
They're a contender because Jerry Jones is going to get these deals done. They're going to have Zeke this season. Now, afterwards, what happens with Dak, what happens with Amari, that's going to be different. But their defense is really good. Jalen Smith, Van Der Esch, they're able to get it done. Dak's good enough. I think this team is a Super Bowl contending team.
Now, this one's interesting because there was a lot of hype last offseason coming into the season with Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. Are you taking them as contenders or pretenders?
I'm going to go with pretenders right now. You know, they've added some guys on defense. They've added D Ford right there from Kansas City. They've added Nick Bosa, who's been hurt. But I have to see more from Jimmy Garoppolo as well. He threw 5 picks in practice the other day, so he's going to have to produce for me on a high level before I can put him there.
Everybody has a bad day, okay,
They do.
Bobby? It was just a really, really bad day. Let's go to the Vikings. A lot of hype again about this team, but they were 8-7 last year. What do you think?
So I have to go with the contender here. I had to choose them over Chicago. I think this is going to be a much better season for Kirk Cousins. He's now second year in this offense with his great receivers in Thielen and Diggs. The defense is always good. Cook's going to be able to run the ball. The O-line will be more solidified this year after the untimely passing of their offensive line coach, Tony Sparano. But they are contenders for me and in a big way.
All right, not much more time before